Hello everyone. So this is a lecture video which pertains to the second part of the section which relates to the chain ladder method. So as we have seen the last time, the standard chain ladder method assumes that past inflation is representative of future inflation. So it is assuming that future inflation may be correctly rightly represented by past inflation rates. Okay, so as the methodology assumes an average development based on past years, the inflation assumption will similarly be based on a weighted average of past claims inflation. So this is based on this assumption, past inflation being representative of future inflation. However, in the case that future inflation is expected to be different than the past, then definitely that assumption of the chain ladder method will fail. Okay, so that's where the inflation adjusted chain ladder methodology comes into play. It incorporates an explicit allowance for past and future inflation. So this method requires a triangle of paid claims and credible estimates of past and future inflation assumptions. Let's move on to the advantages and disadvantages of the inflation adjusted method. So it is simple to apply, we will see that. Okay. It allows for explicit inflation assumptions to be made based on the expectation about future business environment. Third, it allows for sensitivities to be applied, showing how the changes in future inflation affect the ultimate claim estimates. So we are able to perform sensitivity analysis to see how employing or not employing the inflation rates on the future claims will affect the reserve for unpaid claims. Now let's see the disadvantages. So now come back to this word, credible estimate of past claims inflation is required. This is not straightforward to obtain and relies on knowledge of the ultimate cost of claims for prior years, which is circular. In fact, we need to have a good estimate of the past inflations because you may see if we implement the sensitivity analysis, the calculation of the reserve is very dependent on the inflation assumptions that we will be making on the past and the future. So we need a very good, a credible estimate of the inflation rates. Now, one thing that we need to see is that we need the claims which are already known here. We need them to be adjusted by the past inflation rates. Okay, and our objective is to estimate this part of the rectangle or square. Okay, and then we'll use this to calculate the reserve. Now we see that to be able to calculate the past inflation rate, it has a dependence on the ultimate cost of claims for prior years. The inflation rates which are to be estimated here, in fact, they have a kind of dependence on the value of the reserve because we need the reserve, we need these values to be able to deduce the inflation rate. And these inflation rates are used to adjust these values to be able to calculate the reserve. So there is a kind of circular phenomenon here. The reserve is calculated using inflation adjustments, and the inflation adjustment estimation depends on the reserve. So there is a kind of circular phenomenon. Now, this method is difficult to apply to incurred claims since the time basis of the outstanding claims is not very clear. So we need to apply inflation. This inflation may be from one year to another year. Now, we need to know where and when on the timeline the payments are being done. Okay, And that's where, in fact, for example, it is said, are they based on the cost of settling today? So if it is today, there is a kind of inflation adjustment to be made, or the cost at the expected settlement date, so in the future. So we need to add other inflation adjustments. So this is a constraint in this technique, in the fact that sometimes the time basis is not always clear. Okay, so let's move on now to an example, the first example, in fact. So you will see that in that first example, we will apply the basic channel ladder. So it's just to refresh your mind. So we've got the paid claims which have already been done, okay, from the year 2005 up to 2010. Okay, so you recall that this is 2005, and then the next development year is 2006. So this is 2007. So these 9186 is the amount of claims which have been paid in 2007, but which relate to accidents which have occurred in 2005, 2008, 9, and 2010. Okay, so this is the amount paid in 2010, which relate to accidents incurred in 2010. So I think you understand that the diagonal here relates to the payments made in 2010. So now you will also observe that this is incremental paid claim. That's why I said this is paid in 2010, this is paid in 2008, which relate to accidents incurred in 2005. So to apply the basic chain ladder method, we need to accumulate these paid claims. Okay, so for example, for this one, what we've done, add these two. This one is we add these three, okay, etc. So we obtain the upper triangle which relate to paid claims. Now, to fill the lower triangle, what we have to do is to calculate the development factors. So I think you will agree with me that the calculation of the development factors is very simple. So for the first one, you take this and you divide by this sum. Okay, so you take one. So now to obtain this one, you calculate this divided by this, etc. Okay, and then to be able to fill the triangle, for example, this is equal to 128982 times this development factor, etc. Okay, if I take this one, so it is equal to 246920 times 1.0, etc. Okay, so when you fill in this lower triangle, you may calculate the reserve for unpaid claims corresponding to each year of origin, each year of accident. For example, for this year, 2006, it will be this value, which corresponds to the total amount which is paid and to be paid, which relate to the accident year 2006. Okay, so you remove this amount which has already been paid to obtain the reserve. So you take the loss value, you remove the value on the diagonal, obtain this. So then you add up all these to obtain the reserve. So this is the reserve using the basic chain ladder method. So now let's move on to the inflation adjusted method. So these are the same data set that we've used previously, but now we are provided with this data set. You have the inflation rates which correspond to from 2005 to 2006. So if we have a value in 2005, okay, you may uplift that value to the year 2006. So what will be the corresponding value of that of that amount in 2006. Okay, so it is inflated by 12%, so 112% times that value. So you will obtain that value of that amount which you have in 2005, which will be uplifted to the year 2006. You got 22% from 2006 to 07, 22%, 07 to 08, 16%, 13%. Now you are provided also with the future inflation rate, which here is 10%. So over the years 2010 to 11, 11 to 12, etc., it will be 10%. So what we need to do here is that we need to uplift all these values to the year 2010. Okay, so for example, this value is a value which corresponds to 2009. This is 2010. So I need the corresponding value inflated, okay, with the inflation from 2009 to 2010, okay, which is here. So it will be 4885 times 113%. So for example, this value is in 2005. So I need to adjust this value with the inflation of 05 to 06, 0607, 0708, 0809, and 2009, 2010. So I will show you the calculation in the Excel sheet. For example, this 4885, you find here it is, so 4885 times M5, so 113%. This one, you will see that it is 52,546 multiplied by the product of these inflations. Okay, I think it's clear for everyone. Okay, for example, for this one, it will be 28,729 times this, times this, times this, times this. Here it is. Okay, so this table is a table of incremental paid claims, but adjusted in terms of inflation, okay, uplifted to the year 2010. Okay, now we can apply the basic chain ladder method on this inflation adjusted paid claims. Okay, so we need to accumulate these values. So you use the same method as before. Okay, here it is. So the upper triangle here is, so the figures in black are figures which have been inflated, okay, inflation adjusted, okay, to the year 2010. Okay, now to obtain these values in red, what we do, we use the development factors as previously. So we won't spend much time on this. I think you are already acquainted with this kind of calculation. And then, for example, this value is equal to this times this. Here it is. Okay, etc. I think it's clear. Now, one thing you need to understand is that these values in red, they are cumulative cumulative claims which have been paid partly, and some part of these claims haven't been paid. So what we need to do, we need to revert back to the incremental paid claims. So for example, this is the total claim amount to be paid with regard to this accident year 2006. But what is the amount which hasn't been paid? It will be this value minus the diagonal here. Okay, for example, in this year, so in the sixth development year, which corresponds to 2010, 2015, okay, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we need the amount which will be paid in 2015, which relate to the accident year 2010. So what we need to do, we need to take 223,357 minus this. So this is what we will do. You will see here. Okay. Here it is. Okay. So we revert back to the incremental claim table Here it is. So now these values, okay, they are payments which will be done in the future. Okay, so this one will be paid in 2011. Okay, this one in 2015. Okay, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so they are values, they are amounts which have been calculated on the basis of 2010. Okay, so they relate to the value of money in 2010. Now, there will be adjustments, okay, in the future with regards to the inflation. For example, this amount which relate to a payment in 2015, okay, in fact, in this year, so in 5 years' time, when the payment will be done, it won't be this value. It will be perhaps close to this value, but multiplied by the inflation rate, which here is said to be constant a year in the future years, okay, raised to the power of 5, because we've got 5 adjustments to be done. Okay, so you will see that in the next table. For example, here it is 3382 times 1 plus, so this value is the future inflation rate, which is assumed to be 10%, raised to the power of 5. So this is 2015. Now the value which is just before and this one, these two are in 2014. You will see that it is the same calculation, but now raised to the power of 4, because only 4 years ahead of 2010. These three are in 2013. So adjustment with inflation rate over 3 years ahead of 2010. Okay, these are in 2012, only 2 years. So you will see it is 1 plus inflation rate is level of 2. This is only 1 year. Okay, now we have this value amount of unpaid claims adjusted for the year 2011. This is adjusted for the value of the year 2012. This is adjusted to the year 2013. This is adjusted to the year 2014, and this one to the year 2015. Now, when we add all these, we obtain the reserve which relate to unpaid claims, okay, with the assumption that we have explicit allowance, okay, of explicit definition assumption of the inflation rate. Okay, good. So let's see another exercise, another example. In fact, this is taken from a past exam paper, okay, from the IFOA. So it says the table below shows the incremental claims paid on a portfolio of insurance policies together with an extract from an index of prices. Okay. Claims are fully paid by the end of development year 3. So this is a very simple exercise. We have only three development years. Okay. Now you are given the inflation assumptions, but based on the price index. So we need to calculate the inflation. So here it is. The base year is 2006, so it is assumed to be 100. And in 2007, that 100 has increased to 104. So the inflation is 104 over 100. Now, from 2007 to 2008, it will be 109 on divided by 104. 2008 to 2009 will be 111 divided by 109. So these are the inflation rates over the past years, and for the future years it is assumed to be 3% per annum. Now here also we do have the incremental paid claims up to the year 2009. Okay, so we need to adjust for inflation. So for example, this value in 2006, 103, we need to adjust to 3 years ahead, so to the year 2009. So we need to multiply by 1.04, 1.04807 times 1.01, etc. Okay, here it is. Okay, This one only 2 years ahead, and these 2 years correspond to 2007, 2008, 2008, 2009. Here it is. You see the calculation. Okay, so this one, and here no adjustment because it is already in 2009. And then as from now, you use the basic chain ladder. How do we do that? We need to cumulate the payments. First of all, so the upper triangle, we need to cumulate the payments and then calculate the development factors and using them to fill the lower triangle. Good. And then this part, this lower triangle part, relate to the total claim amount to be paid and which have already been paid also. So it includes the two, which has been paid already and the part to be paid. So we need to deduce that part which need to be paid in the respective development years. So here it is. Calculate the individual unpaid claims in the coming development years. Okay. Now we need to adjust these values because they relate, have the value of 2009. So for example, this value is to be paid in 2010, but it has the value of 2009. So we need to adjust with the inflation rate of 3%. So we multiply it by 1.03. Here it is. Here also, because they relate to 1 year ahead. And these two are 2 years ahead, 2 years ahead, and this one 3 years ahead. Here it is. We sum all these figures to obtain the reserve for unpaid claims. I think it's very simple to implement the inflation adjusted chain ladder method. So thank you for your kind attention. See you very soon.